Be damned if I can remember his name, to be honest with you. I know he died this past week. I love the music. Maybe he shouldn't have did so many drugs. Wyatt Whelan. There you go. Scott Whelan. Lay off the drugs, brother. So you'd still be here. You know, it's a big problem we have in this country right now is the fact that good drugs like marijuana are illegal and you can't get them. But the ones that'll kill you, they promote those ones. Secretly, they promote them. They use them to finance their terror attacks, their false flags, their wars. They use those wars to get the product to make it. Just smoke some weed and be happy. All right, anyway, let's get to some conversation on some topics. How's that sound? Some other things that we haven't really covered yet. Some things that, are off the beaten path. We talked about the, what was it that I read before Jack? Damn it, I forgot already. See how that works? I forget things very quickly. This one's been going around. I've been shared it multiple times by many different people. Nonconformity, and free thinking now considered a mental illness. Okay. Is nonconformity and free thinking a mental illness? According to the newest editions of the DSM-IV, Diagnostic and Statistic Manual of Mental Disorders, it certainly is. The manual identifies a new mental illness called Opposition Defiant Disorder, or ODD, defined as an ongoing pattern of disobedient, hostile, and defiant behavior. Symptoms include questioning authority, negativity, defiance, argumentiveness, and being easily annoyed. Well, I guess you all can figure out who might be in the category of having this little issue. The DSM-IV, or 4, is the manual used by psychiatrists to diagnose mental illness. And with each new edition, there are scores of new mental illnesses. Are we becoming sicker? Is it getting harder to be mentally healthy? Authors of the DSM say that it's because they're better able to identify these illnesses today. Critics charge that it's because they have too much time on their hands, which I couldn't agree with that more. The great documentary, I'll be playing it. I'll be doing Doc Day starting probably Thursday, so I'll be playing it, but it gets into that a lot. Blah, 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 blah. New mental illnesses identified by the DSM include arrogance, narcissism, above average creativity, cynicism, and antisocial behavior. In the past, these words were called personality traits, but now they're diseases. And there are treatments available, of course. Down, right? All of this is a symptom of our overdiagnosing and overmedicating culture. In the last 50 years, the DSM has gone from 130 to 357 mental illnesses. A majority of these illnesses afflict children. Although the manual is an important diagnostic tool for the psychiatric industry, it has also been responsible for social changes. The rise in ADD, bipolar disorder, and depression in children has been largely because of the manuals identifying certain behaviors as symptoms. A Washington Post article observed that if Mozart were born today, he would be diagnosed with ADD and medicated into barren normality. According to the DSM, the diagnosis guidelines for identifying opposition defiant disorder are for children, but adults can easily suffer from the disease. This should give any free-thinking American reason to worry. The Soviet Union used new mental illnesses for political repression. People who didn't accept the beliefs of the Communist Party developed a new type of schizophrenia, They suffered from the delusion of believing communism was wrong. They were isolated, forcefully medicated, and put through repressive therapy to bring them back to sanity. When the last edition of the DSM was published, identifying the symptoms of various mental illnesses in children, there was a jump in the diagnosis and medication of children. Imagine that. Problem we talk about all the time. Some states have laws that allow protective agencies to forcibly medicate and even make it a punishable crime to withhold medication. This paints a chilling picture for those of us who are nonconformists. Although the authors of the manual claim no ulterior motive, but simply better diagnostics practices, the labeling of free thinking and nonconformity as mental illness has a lot of potential for abuse. It can easily become a weapon in the arsenal of a repressive state. And this is, when we get in the argument of gun control and people with mental problems, should they be barred from having weapons? Well, the average person is going to say, well, of course they should. Of course people who have diagnosed mental issues should not be allowed to have a firearm. I wouldn't argue with that fact. But when they are trying to make up new mental issues to cover almost everyone, I mean, literally, if they tried hard enough, they could diagnose every single one of us with some form of mental deficiency or mental issue or mental problem. Now, listen, I might be a little mental. I know a lot of people have told me I'm mental. I'm a little crazy. But I don't think I am that level of crazy. I'm probably a positive, good crazy. I mean, there are such things as positive, good crazy, right? I mean, I believe there is. Do you believe there is? Do you think there's a positive, good crazy? Because I would like to know if other people think like me. If other people think that there's a positive, good crazy. But while we're talking about crazy, let's really talk about crazy and how they'll use anything to try to convince us that the world is ending because of global warming.
Speaking of Paris, President Obama spoke about climate change in Paris earlier today. Let's just take a quick look at his remarks.
What greater rejection of those who would tear down our world than marshaling our best efforts to save it?
I liked that link of the Paris attacks and terrorism to climate change and the chaos that it could wreak.
Yeah, so it's very reasonable that the recent trouble in Paris is a result of climate change. This water shortage in Syria, there is a water shortage in Syria. This is fact-based. Small and medium farmers have abandoned their farms because there's not enough water, not enough rainfall. And especially the young people who have not grown up there, have not had their whole lives invested in living off the land. Young people have gone to the big cities looking for work. There's not enough work for everybody. So the disaffected youths, as we say, young people who don't believe in the system, believe the system's failed, don't believe in the economy, are more easily engaged and more easily recruited by terrorist organizations. And then they end up partway around the world in Paris shooting people. So you can make a very reasonable argument that climate change is not that indirectly related to terrorism. It's related to terrorism. So this is just the start of things. The more we let this go on, the more trouble there's going to be. You can say, well, stamp out the terrorists. But if everybody's leaving their farms because of water shortages, that's a little bigger
Not
problem.
to mention that a lot of the unrest across North Africa and in the Middle East was because of spiking food prices. Like as the drought hits, then food commodities become more expensive.
Exactly.
People don't have enough money. They get more frustrated. They're more likely to topple governments. They're more likely to create a refugee exodus.
And have trouble with cause and effect. So we in the United States and Britain are the most responsible parties in leaving the world as it is. You can say China will be the most responsible. Okay. China, India, okay. We'll make deals, we'll trade. Let's just be the leaders. Let's erect the wind turbines set up the solar concentrating power system, set up the photovoltaics, invest in basic research to improve solar panels so they become more efficient, and export those. Come on, everybody, we can do this. But wringing your hands in denial and blaming other countries for a situation that we largely created is, I understand it. It's frustrating, but we can lead. We can lead.
So wait. What situation did we largely create? The situation of ISIS that we created by financing and taking rulers out of power that were controlling these idiots? Or is it the climate change that he's trying? I just can't even believe that anybody, Bill Nye, the science guy, would try to link climate change to the creation of ISIS and the creation of the continuation of killing from these people. I mean, is their agenda that strong that they have to push it that hard? I mean, really? Come on now. You know, and then on the other side of the thing, we're reading the global carbon dioxide emissions stall for the second year in a row. But scientists warn that does not mean the world has reached its peak on carbon. Be afraid of carbon, the base of life. Be afraid of it. Global emissions of carbon dioxide this year have stalled for the second year in a row. But scientists have warned that this does not mean the world has reached peak carbon, with greenhouse gases set to fall year on year. Latest figures on fossil fuel emissions for 2015 show for the first time during a period of global economic growth that the amount of carbon dioxide being pumped into the atmosphere has remained stable for 2 consecutive years. Well, we've continued to, and this is me now, we have continued to, recall